The first Mission Impossible film opens with a team of agents from the Impossible Missions Force attempting to track down a rogue agent in Kiev who is attempting to steal a list of identities of undercover CIA operatives. Unfortunately, the mission goes awry, resulting in the list being stolen and the entire IMF team, including leader Jim Phelps, being killed, all except for Agent Ethan Hunt. When Ethan meets with the IMF's director Eugene Kittredge, he discovers that the Kiev mission was actually supposed to be a setup to discover a mole, codenamed Job, from within the IMF. And as the mission's lone survivor, Ethan Hunt has become the prime suspect. Ethan flees from Kittredge and the IMF, now on a mission to uncover the true mole and clear his name. With no other options, Ethan seeks out the mysterious Job's illegal arms dealer contact, Max. Ethan promises to obtain and deliver to Max the real CIA list in exchange for $10 million and for her revealing Job's true identity. Ethan then teams up with Phelps' widow Claire and disavowed IMF agents Luther Stickle and Franz Krieger to help in his mission. Ethan successfully steals the list from CIA headquarters, causing CIA gatekeeper Don Lowe to be professionally embarrassed and reassigned to a remote station in Alaska. Ethan is then betrayed by Krieger, though he entrusts his loyal ally Luther to keep the list safe. As Ethan plans his next moves, an alive and well Jim Phelps seeks him out to warn him that Kittredge is in fact the IMF mole. Despite this revelation, Ethan deduces that the real mole is actually Phelps upon discovering Phelps' Bible and linking it to the Book of Job. Ethan keeps his knowledge a secret from Phelps and plans to deliver the list to Max aboard a train in Paris. Aboard the train, Ethan delivers the list to Max, but Luther successfully prevents her from sending it to her dangerous colleagues. Ethan then confronts Phelps and Claire, who attempt to steal the money and flee. Ethan records their confession, sending the evidence to Kittredge. Exposed as the mole, Phelps becomes erratic, killing Claire and attempting to escape the moving train onto a helicopter piloted by Krieger. Ethan manages to blow up the helicopter, killing Phelps and Krieger and putting an end to their villainy. As the film comes to a close, Kittredge arrests Max and takes back the CIA list, then reinstates Ethan and Luther into the IMF. I want to cut in real quick and tell you about this video's sponsor, DoorDash. DoorDash is an on-demand food delivery app that delivers your favorite meals straight to your doorstep. A few weeks ago, my wife's car was in the shop, so she had to use my car to get to work. But thanks to DoorDash, I was still able to have food from my favorite local Mexican restaurant delivered for lunch, giving me the energy to finish this video. And it's not just restaurants. I also use DoorDash to order groceries, so I can have a nice dinner cooked for my wife by the time she gets home. So in a way, DoorDash doesn't just deliver my food and grocery needs, it also delivers date night. And for an even better experience with DoorDash, I became a Dash Pass member. That means I get $0 delivery fees in addition to members-only deals and discounts, and lower service fees on eligible orders. So get more from delivery for less with Dash Pass, which includes $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible DoorDash orders. So sign up for Dash Pass today using my promo code RECAPANDCHILL50 or scan that QR code and get your first 30 days for free if you're a new member. Subject to change, terms apply, link is in the description. Now let's get back to the recap. In Mission Impossible 2, Ethan Hunt is assigned to take down a rogue IMF agent named Sean Ambrose, who has stolen the cure to a deadly bioengineered virus known as Chimera. Ambrose plans on releasing the virus so he can profit from the cure. To aid in his mission, Ethan recruits his old friend Luther and Ambrose's professional thief ex-girlfriend Naya. At the lab housing Chimera, Ethan's team managed to destroy all but one sample of the virus before Ambrose and his men arrive to engage in a firefight. To prevent Ambrose from obtaining the virus, Naya injects herself with it and begs for Ethan to kill her, which would put an end to Chimera's threat. Ethan can't bring himself to kill Naya and is forced to flee as Ambrose captures her. Disguising himself as Ambrose's right-hand man, Ethan manages to infiltrate Ambrose's team and steal the cure. After a motorcycle chase through the streets of Sydney, Ethan manages to kill Ambrose and his men before getting the cure to Naya just in the nick of time. With the day saved once again, the IMF clear Naya's past criminal record, and she decides to take a romantic vacation with Ethan. In Mission Impossible 3, several years have passed and Ethan Hunt has retired from IMF fieldwork, instead spending his days training new recruits while coming home to his fiancée Julia at night. Julia has no idea about Ethan's true true occupation, and that secret becomes harder to keep when IMF's assistant director John Musgrave alerts Ethan that one of his former students, Agent Lindsay Ferris, has been captured by an arms dealer named Owen Davian while on a mission to stop him from obtaining a bioweapon known as Rabbit's Foot. Feeling loyalty to his protege, Ethan agrees to lead a mission to save her, accompanied by Luther Stickle and new allies Declan Gormley and Jen Lay. Ethan's team successfully extracts Lindsay and a pair of broken laptops, but as the team flies away, an explosive device planted inside Lindsay's head explodes, killing her and devastating Ethan. Now with a personal vendetta to avenge Lindsay, Ethan agrees to rejoin the IMF, under new director Theodore Brazel, to take down Owen Davian. He marries Julia in an impromptu ceremony before departing for his next dangerous mission. IMF technician Benji Dunn, who desperately wants to be a field agent, successfully uses the broken laptops to track Davian to Vatican City. Ethan's team managed to capture Davian, but upon returning him to America, they are ambushed by mercenaries and Davian escapes. Davian and the mercenaries then kidnap Julia, threatening to kill her if Ethan didn't steal and deliver Rabbit's Foot within 48 hours. And to make matters even worse, Ethan then discovers that before her death, Lindsay had sent him a postcard warning of Davian and director Brazel's association. And so, the IMF apprehend Ethan, accusing him of aiding Davian in his escape. Agent Musgrave helps Ethan flee IMF, where he then reunites with his team. After obtaining Rabbit's Foot and delivering it to Davian, the villainous arms dealer implants an explosive device in Ethan's head before leaving. Agent Musgrave arrives to reveal himself as the real IMF traitor, explaining that he wanted Davian to acquire the Rabbit's Foot so that the IMF would have cause to attack Davian's terrorist partners. Ethan knocks out his former friend and races to save Julia and steal back the Rabbit's Foot from Davian. As the film comes to a close, Benji helps Ethan track down Davian, killing the man and saving Julia. As the device in his head is about to explode, Ethan hurriedly teaches his wife how to shoot a gun and how to use a makeshift defibrillator to deactivate the explosive. After the defibrillator deactivates the explosive but knocks out Ethan, Julia kills Musgrave as he attempts to flee with Rabbit's Foot before successfully resuscitating her husband. With another impossible mission complete, Ethan reveals all about his IMF career to his wife as the two go on a well-deserved honeymoon. In Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, several years have passed and Ethan Hunt is tasked by the IMF to find and stop Cobalt, a mysterious villain who paid an assassin named Sabine to murder an IMF agent named Hanaway and steal nuclear launch codes. Ethan's new team for the mission are the newly promoted to field agent Benji Dunn and Hanaway's grieving IMF girlfriend Jane Carter. They track Cobalt to the Kremlin, which is then blown up and framed as an attack committed by Ethan. As the team is now pursued by the Russian intelligence service, Ethan is informed that the President of the United States has initiated the Ghost Protocol, disavowing every IMF agent. Despite this, the IMF secretary urges Ethan to continue his pursuit of Cobalt to prevent him from starting a nuclear war between the US and Russia. The secretary is then killed by the Russian intelligence service, but his aide, IMF analyst William Brandt, escapes to accompany Ethan and his team. Brandt identifies Cobalt as a Swedish Russian named Kurt Hendricks, and the team tracks the villain to the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, where the terrorist has sent his men to buy the nuclear codes from Sabine. Ethan traverses the outside of the world's tallest building during the mission to intercept the sale of the nuclear codes. Jane kills Sabine as revenge for Hanaway's murder, and Brandt proves himself highly skilled as a field agent, drawing the suspicions of the rest of the team. In the end, Hendricks escapes with both the nuclear codes and a launch device, giving him all of the tools necessary to launch a nuclear war. As Hendricks sends the official launch order for a Russian submarine to nuke San Francisco, Ethan's team races to stop him. As Jane, Benji, and Brandt attempt to repair a satellite station, Ethan pursues Hendricks to retrieve the launch device. Hendricks sacrifices himself in an attempt to keep the device away from Ethan, but the IMF agent manages to retrieve the device anyway, and with the satellite repaired, he is able to disarm the nukes moments before they detonate in San Francisco. With another impossible Impossible mission completed, Brandt confesses to Ethan that he retired from fieldwork to become an analyst after failing to protect Julia from an assassination attempt. And that's when Ethan reveals that Julia is alive and well, her death faked to allow her to live a safer life in peace under the watchful eye of Ethan's IMF friend Luther. Relieved of his guilt and burden, Brandt officially rejoins the field and Ethan's team, ready for their next mission. In Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, CIA Director Alan Hunley decommissions the entire IMF and has them join the CIA to give them more direct oversight following the events in Russia. In the IMF's absence, a villainous shadow organization known as the Syndicate, comprised of rogue operatives from various international intelligence agencies, begin to orchestrate their own sinister plans. Ethan Hunt gets some assistance from Benji, now working for the CIA, to track the Syndicate to Vienna. There, Ethan meets Ilsa Faust, an MI6 agent working undercover to take down the Syndicate from the inside. Despite the team's best efforts, the Syndicate assassinates the Austrian Chancellor and escapes. Hunley blames Ethan, Ilsa, and Benji for the Chancellor's death and orders their execution. When the newly minted CIA agent William Brandt learns of this, he works with Luther to find their old friends and warn them of Hunley's planned hit. Ilsa briefs the team on everything she knows about the Syndicate, including its leader, former MI6 agent Solomon Lane. The group worked together to steal a digital ledger containing the names of every Syndicate member, but Ilsa betrays the team to deliver the ledger to her MI6 boss, Chief Atlee. Fortunately, Benji made a copy of the ledger, though the team discovers they need the British Prime Minister's biometrics to access the information. Brandt invites Hunley to a meeting between himself, Chief Atlee, the British Prime Minister, and a secretly disguised Ethan Hunt. During the meeting, Atlee is exposed as having founded the Syndicate, intending it to be an agency to conduct missions without any government oversight. When the Prime Minister refused Atlee's plans, he founded the Syndicate anyway, before it was eventually taken over by Solomon Lane. To cover up his schemes, Atlee has been blackmailing and framing Ilsa to help him destroy any evidence of his involvement. Ethan's team then discovers that the digital ledger actually contains over $2 billion that Solomon Lane intends to use to further fund the Syndicate's cause, and kidnaps Benji to force Ethan to give him the money. Ethan and his team manage to rescue Benji and apprehend Lane, seemingly putting an end to the Syndicate's threat. Following the mission's success, Hunley is impressed by the skills of Ethan's team, inspiring him to restore the IMF and become the agency's new secretary. In Mission Impossible Fallout, 2 years have passed and the remaining members of the Syndicate have reformed, now known as the Terrorists for Hire Apostles. Working for a mysterious extremist named John Lark, the Apostles begin stealing the plutonium cores necessary to create 3 nuclear bombs. As Ethan's team attempts to protect the cores, the Apostles capture Luther and threaten his life. In order to save his friend, Ethan allows the terrorists to escape. For this decision, the new CIA director Erica Sloan forces her fellow CIA agent August Walker to accompany Ethan on his next mission to ensure the plutonium is acquired at any cost. Ethan and Walker track the Apostles to Paris, where Ethan poses as John Lark and agrees to bring Solomon Lane to the mysterious power broker known as the White Widow in exchange for the plutonium core. After extracting Lane from a prison convoy, Ethan and his team travel to London, where they intend to deliver the villain to the White Widow, the daughter of the arms dealer Max, whom Ethan had previously taken down. Before the exchange, Hunley arrives, claiming to have received intel confirming that Ethan is in fact John Lark. But this is all a ruse, designed to trick August Walker into revealing that he is in fact the real John Lark. Upon learning of Walker's betrayal, CIA Director Sloan sends a team to apprehend him. Unfortunately, the Apostles have infiltrated Sloan's team, leading to an assault that results in the death of Hunley and the escape of Walker and Lane. Reeling from Hunley's death, Ethan, Luther, Benji, and Ilsa uncover Walker and Lane's plan to detonate the nuclear bombs at a medical camp in the Himalayas, which would contaminate the water supply and kill 1/3 of the Earth's population. Ethan's team races to the camp to stop the bombs, learning that they needed to be deactivated at the same exact moment as the detonator to avoid exploding. At the camp, Ethan discovers that his ex-wife Julia and her new husband Eric are working as volunteers. Lane activates the bombs while Walker flees with the detonator in a helicopter, giving the team 15 minutes to avert a total disaster. While Ethan pursues Walker, the rest of the team, with some help from Julia, work to defuse the bombs and battle Lane. Benji and Ilsa defeat Lane, Luther and Julia prepare the bombs for diffusion, and Ethan battles Walker atop a snowy mountain. In the end, Ethan kills Walker and the entire team defuse their bombs in the nick of time, saving the world from catastrophe. The story continues in Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, where an advanced AI system known as the Entity goes rogue and forces a Russian submarine known as the Sevastopol to sink itself in the Arctic Ocean. The Entity has the power to access any digital system, and its advanced algorithms allow it to accurately predict future events. Political leaders from around the world all want to control the Entity for themselves, but to do so, they would need the two pieces of a cruciform key. Former IMF head Eugene Kittredge is now the director of the CIA, and orders Agent Ethan Hunt to acquire the Entity so it can't fall into enemy hands. But not even trusting his own country to responsibly safeguard the AI's power, Ethan goes rogue to set off on another impossible mission to acquire the key and destroy the Entity for good. Ilsa Faust has already acquired the first piece of the cruciform key, and is now the target of an army of dangerous bounty hunters sent by Kittredge. Ethan comes to her aid, dispatching the bounty hunters and saving her life in exchange for the key piece. Next, Ethan teams up with Luther and Benji to track down the second piece of the key at an airport, where it is on its way to being sold to the highest bidder. Unfortunately, Ethan and his team encounter a series of problems at the airport, starting with Ethan having his half of the key being pickpocketed by a professional thief named Grace. As Grace flees the country, Ethan is pursued by agents Briggs and Degas sent by Kittredge, and then confronted by a man named Gabriel, who is working in the service of the Entity and shares a mysterious past with Ethan. Despite Ethan's warnings of the dangers that Gabriel poses, his loyal teammates and friends, Ilsa, Benji, and Luther, accompany him to Venice to track down Grace and the stolen key. There, they discover that Grace had been hired to steal the key by the White Widow, who planned on selling the completed cruciform the next day to a mystery buyer. Gabriel then confronts Ethan once again, warning that the Entity has predicted the death of either Grace or Ilsa. As the two women flee the party, the Entity fakes a phone call from Benji to lure Ethan into a trap set by Gabriel's assassin accomplice, Paris. The two engage in a brutal fight, ending with Ethan defeating Paris but choosing to spare her life. Meanwhile, Gabriel tracks down and confronts Grace. Ilsa intervenes to save Grace, but is tragically killed by Gabriel in the process. Ethan and his allies mourn the loss of Ilsa, and Grace emotionally blames herself for the death. The others comfort and encourage her, stating they had all experienced similar losses before being given the choice of joining the IMF, like Ethan being blamed for the death of his lover Marie, who had been murdered by Gabriel decades prior. And so Grace decides to help intercept the White Widow's cruciform key exchange. Before the mission, Luther departs the group, explaining that he needs to go off the grid to confuse the Entity, but encourages Ethan to spare Gabriel's life in their final confrontation. And with that, the plan is set for Grace to board the Orient Express train and pose as the White Widow to steal back the key during the meeting with her buyer. To Grace's surprise, the White Widow's buyer is in fact Kittredge, wanting to ensure the Entity is controlled by the US. Unfortunately, the real White Widow arrives, exposing Grace's scheme and leaving her with nowhere to run aboard the moving train. Also aboard the train is corrupt US Director of National Intelligence Denlinger, who meets with Gabriel and Paris to forge an alliance with the Entity. Denlinger explains that the Entity was created by the US as a cyber weapon, and the only way to destroy it is unlocking its source code upon the Sevastopol using the cruciform key. Wanting to keep this knowledge a secret, Gabriel murders Denlinger and then fatally stabs Paris, whom the Entity warned would betray Gabriel after having her life spared by Ethan. Gabriel then destroys the train's brakes, causing it to dangerously speed ahead with no way of stopping. In order to rescue Grace, Ethan is forced to ride a motorcycle off a cliff and parachute onto the moving train. Once aboard, Ethan is confronted by Gabriel, who steals the key from Grace and engages in a fight with Ethan on top of the train. That fight is interrupted by at Briggs, still under the orders to apprehend Ethan. This unfortunately allows Gabriel to escape with the key before detonating bombs that destroy an upcoming bridge that would inevitably send the train and all of its passengers plummeting to their deaths. Briggs finally realizes that Ethan is a hero and helps him save the passengers, while Ethan rescues Grace from the falling train. Ethan then reveals that he had secretly pickpocketed the key back from Gabriel, while the injured Paris reveals that the only way to destroy the entity is stored within the Sevastopol. And so, as the film comes to a close, Grace informs Kittredge of her desire to officially join the IMF, while Ethan and Benji set off to find the Sevastopol to destroy the entity once and for all.